Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals. I can't believe it, but we're here. How did I make it through all 4 Wave 4 Ultimates reviews in such a timely manner? So, I obviously got way ahead of myself here. I shot the opening and the unboxing in this video all the way back on January 22nd. And all the other footage I shot over the past week. The first week of July. That is, that is ridiculous. But, it does give me a chance, to have a interesting and unique perspective on this guy. I didn't just open this guy up and make my review the same day. No, I had a lot of time to gather my thoughts about him. A lot of time. About 6 months, actually. And, so I think that I should be able to do a good job of, pointing out all the pros and cons about this guy. So I hope you enjoy. So anyways, this is a review of the brand new Super7 Ultimates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Wave 4 Casey Jones. Man, Casey was a great action figure back in the day, and he's Raph's best bud. So it'll be awesome to put both of these guys together on my shelf and have them beating the snot out of some foot soldiers and Shredder and whatnot. It's going to be a good time. So Casey Jones was put up for pre-order way back in October of 2020. And he took about 14 or 15 months to get me because I think I got this in like almost mid-January. I got it from Big Bad Toy Store. He was the very last figure to ship from them for some reason. He was like delayed. I don't know what was up with that. But, I have him and I'm glad. Originally, he cost $45 and I think he's still $45 at Big Bad Toy Store and a few other places. So pick him up while you can. Casey here comes packaged in this, layer upon layer of cardboard. The first layer is this brown mailer, perfect for protecting the box within. On the front here it just says Casey Jones, Nickelodeon, Super7. Nothing to note of the back, really. And, just like a Russian doll, when you open this up, you find a smaller box. Well, come on. There we go. First, though, you got to get rid of this bag. Man, come on. I love the Super7 Ultimates package design in general. I think it's really awesome. But they really, really make you work to get your action figure. I mean, you got to get through the mailer. You got to pull off the bag. Now, I can't even see the action figure yet because I have this slipcover. Now, I do think the slipcover designs are cool, but, I just want to see my guy already, right? All right, so all the good guys have green slipcovers and the bad guys have purple slipcovers. On the front here, there's a manhole that has Casey Jones' face. You got a hockey stick on this side and you got a baseball bat on the other side. So, all these action figures have the same design. You got the face in the front and then the weapons on the side. There's nothing really of note on the front or back other than that cool manhole. It just says contents 1 figure with accessories, Super7 on both sides. And now we finally get to remove that slipcover. Now, this guy is pretty sweet, and the color of everything just matches that original action figure perfectly. Like when you look at this, it like immediately takes you back to the Casey Jones toys from back in the day. Of course, all these weapons are colored, but you do have the all the weapons with the original color from that old toy line. I don't know. He's just a really an awesome sight to see. One of the best things about the Super7 package design is their giant window, so you can see your action figure inside, and you can get a really good look at all the weapons too. So that's pretty cool. All the good guys have green bricks around the window, and the bad guys have blue bricks. On the back here, it has a description. The description on the back reads, Casey Jones, the battering vigilante sportsman. Like all psychos, Casey Jones, the masked sportsman, wanted to be a legend. Do psychos want to be legends? That's the first I heard that. Armed with broken bats, shattered dreams, and 1 golf club, Casey turned his ambition toward crime fighting. Modeling himself after his favorite vigilante cop shows, Casey decided to take the law into his own mitts. Outfitted with cast-off sports gear, Casey challenges every criminal who dares to go out of bounds. Teaming up with our beloved turtle teens, Casey strikes out with a special vengeance against Shredder and the Foot Clan. In all seriousness, this guy definitely does look awesome, and I've never even been like the hugest fan of Casey Jones action figures. Not because I dislike Casey Jones, I think Casey Jones is an amazing character, but because I always prefer like the giant monster mutants and all that kind of stuff. But you know, like I said, this Casey Jones looks pretty awesome. I'm actually looking forward to see how this guy compares to the other humans in this this line. All right, so without continuing to go on and on, I'm going to open this guy up and move him around to make sure nothing's broken, and I will talk to you in a little bit. So here's Casey Jones, out of the package and ready to go cave in some criminal skull. As you can see, they did a good job of transferring all the important details from the old toy into the new one, but I think, more than any other figure in Wave 4, Casey has some problems. Problems with his proportions, all right? Both his physique and his costume. I mean, is it a costume? It's more like a sweatsuit, athletic gear thing. Both his physique and, whatever he wears could have used a little adjusting. As always, these are just my opinions. And, maybe I'm nitpicking. So maybe it's possible these things don't bother you. I'm not trying to sway your opinion. I'm not trying to say whether or not you should buy this guy. Maybe just a little bit. I mean, you should pick him up if you want a full Ninja Turtle Ultimate set. But this is just my critiques. I'm just trying to be honest about how I feel about this guy. When you get right down to it, I just think they made this guy way too thin. Like, his torso is way too small, and it's really emphasized by those giant, super jacked arms. Like, they're huge. His torso is really small. There should be way more space here from shoulder to shoulder than there is. And, not only that, but his head makes his torso looks really small because he's got like this huge noggin. I feel like it's way too long and just huge. And, you might say that the original one had a big head, but you know what? It was in line with the rest of his body. It might have been big, but it also fit in proportionally better with the size of his torso. Here, the torso just appears really, really small. And not to mention, like, the space here. This giant gap between his abs and the top of his sweatsuit. For a toy line that really tries to do whatever it can to hide joints, like the elbows and the knees and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is such a weird mistake. Like, look at that huge gap. It is so jarring and so in your face. Like, you can't help but look at this guy and notice that. And I'll explain why there is such a big gap there. Like, if you look at the Shredder action figure, you can easily notice why that gap is here. But, they should have did what they could, like they couldn't have spent a little bit of extra money to, just beef him out a little bit, widen out his torso so that it would fit in there and be a little more flush and fill that in. Now, I was wondering, how this all looked when they released their promo shots or their marketing pictures, whatever you want to call them. And I noticed that, Casey, in these pictures, he's a little squished. Like, you can clearly see the head and the torso and the pelvis appear shorter. A lot shorter than this actual action figure. And, I think that in those promo shots, he definitely looks a lot nicer. And if you take a look at his torso here, you can see how much fuller it looks. Like, it actually sits flush with his sweatpants. It looks great. I mean, it looks good, And then you just come back to this guy and you're like, man, he would have looked better if he was a little bit more squished, or if they just should have beefed this torso out a little bit, They should have just scaled it up just a tiny bit. Another fault I have with this action figure is just, the pelvis, or the way the hips attach to the pelvis. I can't tell. I do think that the pelvis should have just been a little bigger, a little wider, just, and they should have made that upper torso a lot bigger. But, the way the hips connect to this pelvis here, it makes his legs look like they're all, bowed out. If you try to get him to stand up straight, the bottoms of the legs, angle outward. You know, and maybe that could just be maybe that is just the bottom legs. You know, they appear, they are not flipped. They are on the right side of the legs, right? Because you could say, like, you might look at an action figure and be like, well, maybe this is just on the wrong side, and that this would look better over here because of the way it angles outward like this. But it is correct, and you can tell because if you look at the original action figure, you can look at the knees and see that the shapes are the same. You know, he's got like a circle on this side. The other side, he sort of has these tears that go upward. Plus, you have a little bit of an extra rip down here at the bottom by the ankle that he does have. So that is correct. It's just weird. The way that they sculpted it is weird. So if he stands up, they just angle out kind of strange. I don't know. So in my opinion, this is another one of those guys like Muckman or, you know, Splinter or, you know, even Baxter Stockman, which, you know, is, you know, a given. But he is definitely a guy that you, like, should squat. Like, you should sort of pose him like he was originally posed in that original toy line. And that way it doesn't make his, I don't know, legs look as goofy. It's just, I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit of a difficulty to, like, when you're trying to pose him in a way that doesn't look awkward. There's just something off about his legs. So yeah, you should probably get him to squat whenever you're standing on your shelf. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think I'm crazy? How do you feel about these legs? Like I said, they angle out kind of strange down at the bottom. You know, I just think it gets like a little confusing because all their marketing shots or their promo shots, the guys are always standing straight up. And I assume that's because they didn't want to, I guess, bend them and pose them in like action shots while they're just like standing straight up. But, you know, if the intention was to try to always make these characters be like squatted, like the original Playmates action figures, then I think that even like when you're looking at them, when they're standing there and they're displaying all their weapons to the side of them and everything like that, you should probably pose them in a squatted position, because otherwise I kind of just assume that his natural way of standing is standing straight up. Before I take my usual obsessive look at the new action figure versus the old action figure, I want to take a look at the humans in this toy line. Now, I understand that Super7 is trying to completely emulate the look of the old toys, but I sometimes kind of wish that, you know, the humans had regular proportions, you know, and not these giant head bodies. And the mutants, you know, they had the crazy, exaggerated bodies. I already talked, you know, for a long time about both April and Shredder in their Ultimates videos. And, you know, I discussed the pros and cons of their sculpts. You know, like April's torso, in my opinion, is way too squished. Like, I think she really could have benefited from having a longer torso. Her pelvis especially just looks like stunted or something. And to be honest with you, I don't remember what I said about the Shredder at all. But, you know, a lot of the Shredder's body is reused in Casey Jones. And for some reason, like, he just looks a lot better than Casey turned out. You know, I feel like just by looking at it, I don't know if it's like an illusion or what, Shredder's body just seems more proportionally correct. And Casey Jones' body just feels squished. I don't understand why. But, you know, like I said, you know, a lot of the things are shared here. He's got the same shoulders, the same biceps. The arms, they look the same, but it's hard to tell if any of Casey Jones's arms actually came from the Shredder, because his whole arm is completely wrapped. You could tell that his hands are actually the same, but they just adjusted them and added the wrapping or the glove on that hand. The pelvises began as the same pelvis, but, you know, they got rid of this belt and added, you know, the sweatpants tops and the string. The thighs are exactly the same. The bottoms of the legs look completely different. Of course, the feet are different. And then the torso. Now, the torso looks just like sort of like the pelvis. Like, they began with this and they added all this stuff on top. So why doesn't it look correct? Well, let's take a closer look here and see if we can figure it out. So I actually did try to measure these guys to see if there was any difference between the torso and the pelvis. And, you know, I really couldn't see much of a difference at all. Maybe like a 16th or something like that, but, you know, barely nothing. But it's just like, you know, I feel like maybe they didn't build the sweatshirt on top of this exactly. Like they didn't add that to that. You know, maybe they sort of cut into this a little bit to add these details. And that's why it looks, you know, it's like the same mass, not necessarily like bigger like it should be, that like you have the same body underneath here. I don't know. It's just, it's difficult to tell. Like, I don't know. The abs are the same, but they definitely appear like they are shrunken a little bit. You know, there is definitely an adjustment here taking place. Even this this pec over here, it just appears like it's squished a little bit. I don't know. It's like I said, it's the same, but it's different. I mean, even the back appears, I don't know, it just appears smaller than the Shredder's. So if you were curious why there was such a huge gap in Casey's waist here, and, you know, it doesn't make any sense because he's built off of the same body, you know, as Shredder, it's because they got rid of this belt. Like, look at that huge gap there, right? If you look at the Shredder, this belt is very tall, so it goes all the way up into his abs a little bit, and it is also very thick, so it covers up that hole. You know, it fills in the area there. They really should have, you know, maybe, like I said before, I just think that they should have made his torso a little better. You know, just spent a little extra money just to increase the size of this thing. But if you couldn't do that, just at least like add some kind of, you know, thicker lip of the sweatpants or something like that. Sort of like this belt has. You know, I think the Shredder's head is also just a little smaller, which helps the, you know, increase the size of the torso to your eye or whatever. You know, the arms are exactly the same. It's just Casey Jones has some hair sculpted on there. What I do think is, you know, better about the Shredder action figure is the lower legs. The way that these lower legs were sculpted, they actually appear more like, I don't know, they look better. They look like they angle in a little bit better than Casey Jones's legs. Like Casey's really angle out at the bottom. So, I don't know. Maybe it's not where they connect at the hips. Maybe it's just all down at the lower leg. If you do decide to squat your Casey Jones, he still looks pretty good next to April O'Neil when she's standing straight up. I also think that if you put Casey's arms, like, you know, out like this, I think that also kind of helps, you know, make his torso look a little more wide than it actually is. And now, on to the deep comparison. The original Casey Jones came out in 1989. Now that was the second year of the glorious Ninja Turtle toy line. I never had Casey Jones, but you know, I remember when I first saw him, I thought, awesome. The Turtles get to fight Jason Voorhees? I mean, you know, he's a dude with a hockey mask. Who wouldn't think that? I think my dad didn't like him because he thought he was a reference to Jason. You know, he sure didn't like the violent episodes of the cartoon that, you know, or how violent Casey Jones was in the cartoon. So anyway, Casey Jones has the black hair with the blue highlights. These actually look really good. I do like that, you know, like the cut, there's like a little tiny cut in the front of the hockey mask here, and the hair does kind of droop over that. You have that here. So that's cool. That's a nice little attention to detail there that they, you know, included. Now, the red straps look pretty good. They sort of fade into his hair, just like the original one does. Especially above his ears. They look like exactly the same, you know, exactly the same length. Now, here's where I think they took, you know, a little misstep, right, with this Casey Jones action figure. And that is the hockey mask itself. All right, the original one is, you know, very square looking. He's got a very rectangle shaped head. You know, this one here, the chin is very, very steep, and I think that could have been fine, but I think because they changed some of the other proportions, it just doesn't look as, I don't know, it just doesn't look necessarily like Casey Jones to me. You have like these extra forehead lines, you know, to try to give that a little more shape. That's fine, I guess. You know, like trying to make him a little more, I don't know, sleek or angular or something like that. Like, to me, like, you're kind of almost crossing into Mick Thompson territory here, and not necessarily Casey Jones. Like, he's got that really pointy nose. It protrudes from the face a lot more than the original one does. And you know, the biggest difference for me, and the reason why I don't think he necessarily looks as much like, you know, Casey Jones as he should, is the shape of the eyes. Like the original one, the eyes are so slanted. They're cut like really, really sharp, you know, almost like Batman. And this one here, they're very round. You know, they don't appear as, you know, even though he's a good guy, he sort of appears, you know, kind of evil, you know. He appears like he could be a threat to, you know, the bad guys or the sides of good. Like, you can't tell just by looking at him at first. And, you know, this very slanted, harsh-looking eyeball shape is, you know, exactly what I picture when I think of Casey Jones in, you know, the Mirage comic books. The original Casey Jones action figure, to me, is like Playmates almost perfectly, you know, replicating the look of the Mirage comic books. He's like the closest to the comic books out of any other action figure in this whole line, just because of the way his eyes look. Like, they look just like how Eastman and Peter Laird would have drawn him back then. I mean, look at this guy. He looks like Kevin Eastman sculpted him himself, you know? This guy right here, he is just lacking that Mirage edge that some of the early Playmates action figures had. Now onto the torso. I think they did a pretty decent job here of trying to replicate the tears in the sweatshirt. Like, you may think like this is very exaggerated, like, but it still sort of has that same basic shape. Even the armholes here, the way they go around his arms, and like this one sort of like kind of cuts inward and then underneath, it sort of replicates that shape exactly. The V here looks really nice too. Now this is where I'm talking about where, like, you know, the original one had a big head, right? But he still had a decently sized torso. It's still very wide, you know, he still's got a lot of space between his shoulders. Here, because you don't have as much space, like that V is a smaller V. I mean, you can't even really see his hairy chest in there, you know, it doesn't stand out as much. But what I do really appreciate, and I think really looks cool, is like, you know, the string here, it looks almost exactly the same. You have that strap going across, which kind of lays the same way, except you have a little buckle down here, which is nice. This is unfortunately where you see like most of the paint slop on this guy. Like, the buckle is worn, the brown is sort of sloppy a little bit down here, but you know, even the what is nice is the hood. I feel like the shape of the hood replicates the original one very close, and even when you go to the back, you know, this one is definitely more detailed, but it still has that like same exact appearance. The big difference here is he doesn't really have that protruding spine like the original one does. Like, his really sticks out. I mean, geez. But other than that, like, most of the shapes are very close. Very close. Now, one thing they did not copy is, look, the original Casey Jones had some hairy armpits. I mean, check that out. He does not have hairy armpits. There is sort of a light sculpting of hair on the abdomen here, and you can see that he does have like that huge innie. You know, they had to add that in there. That's like, they must have looked at this guy and been like, yeah, we got to add that. Like, he couldn't be Casey Jones unless he had that huge innie. You know, the arms look good. You do have some light hair sculpting on the brand new one's arms. It's like, that is like thicker, you know. This is, you're not getting into Wolverine territory, but it is definitely noticeable. The I don't know, the original hand, the gloved hand, looks like it has some rings down here. Or maybe that's like a strap to tighten up the glove there. This brand new one doesn't seem like it has that strap or any of that detail there. And again, it's like the paint on the hand here is just wearing off. Like, I haven't even touched this guy. This guy has literally been in a box since, you know, whenever I got Wave 4. I pulled all these guys out and I threw him into a box, hoping to, you know, review him someday. And eventually I got to him 4 months later. The wrapping around the hand looks good. You know, it has a nice detail on there. Very very porous looking, almost like it's a fabric. So that's cool. It's nice to see that they, added this extra detail here, or this texture, and then the other glove is smooth, like a leather glove. So that's nice. The sweatpants, you got the string at the top. That's good. You got the turned over, or I guess it's the tops of his sweatpants are ripped. So he ripped the elastic band, and then he just has it tied together. Strange. He has the same tears in the knees, right? This one has the more circular tear, and this one has the more of like a bunny-eared tear. And then you just have this extra tear down at the bottom, which is painted for the first time ever. The original Casey Jones, his sweatpants weren't necessarily, huge and baggy. So it's okay that they kind of, reused Shredder's pants. Like, it still looks baggy enough. You still have all these really nice wrinkles and ripples and stuff like that. Like, that is just a cool looking thigh. Like, that is really conveying the thought that, like, there's a solid object underneath there, and then you just have this fabric being pulled across it. Like, that is really well done. Even down here, the lower legs, even though they, as I said, they jut out a little bit where they shouldn't, I do like the way that the wrinkles look. Like, they look natural and they look cool. They don't necessarily match the original one, but they are still very good. Yeah, this one had, the wrinkles are sharper, the creases. Same thing with the other side. It's more bulky or baggy. Now, what I do really like is his shoes. Like, the shoes look just like the old ones, except they look better, because you have that, like, two-tone green effect, right? I like the lighter green with the darker green, and the shoelaces look really nice, too. Although there is a little bit of a, the paint of the shoelace is not on track there. I mean, they even painted the rings around the shoelace. I don't know. It's just cool. Like I said, I like the details of these shoes. The original ones were smooth on the bottom, but this one has these nice, treads. The soles of his shoes look really awesome. Like that, they put a lot of extra detail into there, and they didn't really necessarily have to, because you're going to have him standing up most of the time. So I applaud them for adding this extra bit of detail. And because it is green, I feel like these shapes make it look like turtle shells. I guess the only thing I didn't really mention is this extra shoulder pad up here. That looks good. The colors are sort of similar. The detail is better. Like, I like how you have the gold ring painted here. That looks really nice. And even on this pad here, there's a bunch of wrinkles and cracks that the original one just did not have. The original one was just very smooth. And again, here the paints is wearing off. So, all right, so let's get into paint here. Like, they did a decent job of matching these colors closely. I don't know. Like, obviously the original Casey Jones is pretty much darker all around. Like, his skin tone is darker and, has a hint of red in it. The brand new Casey Jones is a few shades away from albino. He does have a little bit of a darker gradient on his abdomen, or his abs, for some reason. I don't know why. That's like the only place. I guess you might see no, you don't even really notice it in the forearms. It's just down here on his belly. The sweatshirt, is definitely darker on the original one. The new one is way more turquoise. I don't know which I prefer. I don't know. This one, I guess, might fit in with more of the zanier colors of the Ninja Turtles, but this one was fine too. I never had any problem with this. The shoulder pad matches pretty well. As I said before, like, just the slop around the strap down here is a big, negative in my opinion, which is a little surprising. I feel like the Ninja Turtle paint is usually pretty good. It's usually on really well. The sweatpants are close, but I feel like the original one has more of a hint of purple to it. This one is just gray, and the shoes are very, very close. I do. I guess I should also point out too that it is cool that they kept the same. One detail here is with the shoes is the one shoe is tied and then the other one is untied. So of course, Mirage always had to have something different on both sides. You couldn't have them both tied. It had to have some kind of difference. You can see his ankle. The skin of his ankle down there. The original one, you couldn't see that at all. So that's a nice little addition. Other than that, there's not really much else to cover. I told you, we got some thin paint up here. Oh yeah, the knees. His knees, I don't feel like, I don't know, do they have like a dry brush to try to make them appear dirty? It just seems kind of weird. To me, when I looked at the knees, I thought that the white paint had worn away and the gray underneath was showing. But I guess it appears as though that there is some dry brushing on there to make them appear dirty. It just seems kind of weird that you would make that dirty and not like put any other spots on his immaculate gray sweatpants. But yeah, so that is paint. Now on to articulation. Now, Casey Jones has the classic Ninja Turtle articulation. The articulation we all grew up and love, right? Very simple. The head turns. The shoulders rotate around. You have one cut in the middle of the arm somewhere. Here he's got it in his forearm. And then he's got ball jointed hips. And that's all he's got. The nice thing about the original Casey Jones action figure is his hand is tilted forward. That way you can actually make it look like he's conking somebody on the head with his, his baseball bat. The brand new Casey Jones action figure has pretty much all the same articulation that every Ultimates action figure has. It's nothing too crazy. I find it to be acceptable. Like, I like it. I don't like the crazy articulated figures sometimes. Like, I'm not the hugest fan of double jointed elbows, so I think it's good that he only has single jointed elbows. I just feel like the way that bends looks so much nicer than a double jointed elbow. But I do understand why people do like the double jointed elbows, because you are limited, okay? So his head here, you have a ball joint in the base of the head, and then that connects to a rod that connects to the top of his neck. Now, you can't really get a lot of, like, upward mobility or looking down or anything like that. You can mostly just kind of rotate it from side to side. And, yeah. I mean, I guess you can tilt it. He has no upper torso articulation. His shoulders rotate. They have a hinge. You have a bicep cut. You have, as I said before, you have single jointed elbows, but they have a hinge, and they can also rotate. He doesn't have much of an elbow flap, which is nice. That still looks pretty good when you bend that all the way. His wrists rotate around, and they have a hinge too. What I do like about this Casey Jones action figure is, like I said with the original one, he comes with hands that both can hinge horizontally and vertically. That way, when you're whacking somebody with a baseball bat or a hockey stick or a golf club, you can actually, tilt it outwards. Lots of times, if their hands are like just straight up like this, you'll never get like a good angle of him actually hitting somebody. So it's nice to have that extra little bit of motion there. The torso rotates around, but it's a ball joint. Oh, I've never bent him back like this, but that is not good. You can see in there, like, the gap gets even bigger, and then you can see the rod that connects his upper torso to his pelvis. So that is no West Bueno. I will never display him bending back like that. Now, as far as I'm concerned, he has rotation in his waist, and that is all. He's got ball jointed hips. You can move forward, back, and up like that. I mean, that's pretty decent movement. I mean, you're not going to get too crazy. What I do like is the vinyl covering of his pelvis here. Seems to be very thick, very sturdy. It doesn't feel like it's going to start to crack or anything like that, like some of the NECA action figures do. And then you have an extra cut right here at the top of the hip, so you can rotate the hip, the thigh. As I said before with the knees are kind of... I feel like you have the most trouble with these knees, because here's maybe where double jointed knees could have help this guy out a little bit. I don't even know, because you only have a hinge here and you have rotation, right? So I find it very difficult sometimes to try to get him to, you know, have it, like, just to stand him in a way that doesn't look awkward. It's just tricky because you don't have that extra, I don't know, it's just, his knees are not my favorite, and his lower legs, his shin areas, is just kind of difficult to use. His ankles here have a hinge, and they also have ankle rockers. And, you know, that is all this guy has. You know, as I said, decent. I mean, you'll be able to get him to, you know, pose whacking people and breaking stuff. And that's really, you know, all you need. When it comes to this Casey Jones action figure, I have mixed feelings. Like, he's neat looking, you know, at a quick glance. He, you know, fills the spot that you need in your collection. But when you really start to, you know, stare at him like I do, you start to notice lots of weird bits. You know, the waist torso situation is a huge problem. Like seriously, how much more would it have cost to just scale it up a little bit? You know, in whatever program they use to model these guys, just so it looks nice and flush and fits in well. If they just would have made like a few tweaks, you know, fixed the waist, angled the shins a little bit, you know, this guy would have been awesome. You know, I could even look past the you know, the proportions of the face if like some of these other things weren't, you know, negatively affecting my my thoughts on this guy. I mean, I am happy that he does have the, you know, the option to switch out his hands to either a horizontal or vertical rotation. You know, that's nice. That way you can actually make him look like he's using his weapons to fight bad guys. I mean, that type of movement is just necessary for a dude who's going to swing around a baseball bat or golf clubs, you know? And, you know, speaking of hands and baseball bats and golf clubs, now on to accessories. So, first up is Casey Jones' weapons rack. I think that this is a really, really cool idea. I actually like this weapons rack a lot. And I think it really goes to show how, like, inventive and creative they can be when creating these weapons racks. You know, if you look at all the weapons racks from Wave 6, there's a lot of really cool designs. I was really bummed to see that there was no weapons racks at all for Wave 7. But all right, so let's take a closer look at this thing. So this thing is pretty neat, but it does have some problems. You know, I love that it's a goalie net. You know, I think that was a very creative, very cool thing to do. However, it is kind of warped, like it falls over a lot. Not to mention, it's only kept together by a little tiny bit of plastic here. So you're going to have to super glue that together if you actually want to take this thing apart and, you know, actually display it as a goalie net. But yeah, I like it. I like how the net, like you have all these little ripped pieces and you have the hooks on the end. I don't know, it's just really cool. And what also is neat about it is you have, like, if you want his weapons to match his weapons from back in 1989, this comes pretty close. It's a little more blue, you know, like those old weapons are a little more green. I have two different versions. Like, one is very green and the other one is a more a lighter green color. So it's not like 100% accurate, you know, but it's sort of in the same ballpark of this weird sort of turquoise color. Like I said, I do like the color. I just wish that it was a little more sturdy and didn't fall apart like this. But yeah, you know, these, like I said, these weapons racks are cool. I mostly just keep them in a box, but it's just a neat item to have. Like, I just think it's a very cool extra bit of, you know, plastic for your toy collection. And, you know, I'm bummed that it seems like they have phased these things out. Up next is the golf bag. Now, this is very cool looking. I do like the extra details on here, and it does match the original one very closely, and we'll take a little closer look at that. But what I do want to mention is that this is like one of those areas where I feel like Super7, they always do this. They always make the accessories for these new action figures almost the same exact size as the originals, and sometimes even smaller. Like, the whole of this thing is smaller. The strap is smaller. You know, the details look nice. They're crisp. These things actually, like, bulk out and, you know, it all looks cool. The wrinkles look very nice. and you know, well thought out, but it's just very small. And getting it on your Casey Jones, you have to take his head off to put this on him. And I don't know. You just kind of think that this thing should be bigger. You know, it's just like Rocksteady with his, you know, his turtle shell drill. Like, these things should be a little bigger because these guys are, you know, at least 3 inches taller than the original action figures. So, you know, you have all the zippers pretty much in the same spot. You have all the straps and the belts and the buckles and stuff like that. What's nice is that they're actually painted silver, so you know that stands out. There's no wash or anything like that in here. I don't know if that's like there's like a little mark on this golf bag right here, but I don't think that's intentional. Like I said, I do like how everything kind of bulges out and actually kind of appears like there's stuff inside of there. Like, you look at that and it creates that illusion that there's actual solid objects inside of there. Where the original one is, you know, it's just kind of, it looks good, but it's just kind of smushy or something like that. Like, it's just not fully realized as much as this brand new one. Even on this side, you can see that there's like a rip there, and it's kind of taped together with that X. You know, it's cool. The original one is very, very green. And, you know, the original one, just like this one, is a solid piece. And then you pop that onto that little peg right there. This one, you can't adjust this at all. You cannot remove this strap at all, which, you know, really makes me worry that eventually this thing is going to rip or pull or do something. Like, I don't know. I don't really have much faith in these very soft rubbers or plastics or vinyls. I just feel like they're going to rip or crack or something that, you know, is not going to be good for your display in the future. But I do like the highlights, like the darker color on top of the lighter color really makes this thing pop. And plus the silver all looks really good. It's very clean too. I don't really see any messy parts other than that little whatever that is. Yeah, it's okay. The strap, like, you look at the original strap, I mean, it's huge. Like, sometimes I feel like it looks a little too huge when you put it on Casey Jones, but I don't know, at least it, like, I don't know, it just seems like it kind of wraps around him a little better than this one does. So let's see how this fits around Casey Jones. When you do remove Casey Jones' head, I recommend warming up his neck, or at least this head. I couldn't get the head to warm up, but if you, you know, just keep on popping this out of here, this neck hole, that will eventually crack. You know, that happened to my Mondo Gecko, and then the head was like a bobblehead, so you do not want that. So warm that up. I warn you. I also warmed up the neck hole before reattaching the head. So, you know, this thing fits on him pretty well. Like, the strap conforms to his body really nice. It kind of sits at a good place. I just feel like it just seems a little too small. One of the plus things about this is because it is not, like, too big, he doesn't fall over with this on his back. He's still pretty sturdy. He stands up nice and straight. Like, with the original one, like, he'd fall over all the time because this thing is, like, almost bigger than his body. You know, it's probably, yeah, it looks bigger than his torso. So he just, like, topples over all the time, and then you have to like bend him forward, and then he stands weird in your display. It's not the best. So the plus side, like I said, with this guy is it's small enough that it doesn't make him fall over. So can you fit all of his weapons inside of here? Well, let's take a look. First, we'll start with the hockey pucks. Put in the bats and the golf club and the hockey stick. I mean, it is very snug. I know you can get these all in here. I have gotten them all in, but it's just very snug, you know. The original one, the hole is bigger, and you can fit more items inside of it. And if you were curious, you actually can wrap the original golf bag around this brand new Casey Jones, and you could fit all of his brand new weapons in here just fine. And I guess you could even fit the old ones in too. Look at that. All right. Let's see. Now he's really souped up and ready to go. I don't know if at some point the heat caused the paint on his butt to stick to this thing, and once it pulled off, it pulled the paint off, because now it kind of looks like his butt cheeks are sticking out a little bit. I mean, despite my nitpicks, it does still look cool on his body. And, you know, even though the color doesn't match the original one, like 100%, I still like it a lot. I like that bluish green color, you know. It's very eye-catching. The original one was good, and this one is good too. The way that the strap connects to it kind of sits in a different spot too. But I don't know. It's nice. I just wish it was bigger. That's my only thing here, is that bigger sometimes is better. What I think is absolutely awesome is you're able to pose Casey reaching behind his back, so he can pull out a bat from that golf bag. That is nice. You know, not every Casey Jones action figure has the ability to do that. So it's nice that despite this bag being a little small and his articulation being a little limited, he's still able to do, pull off this very cool look. You know, as if you want to pose him on your shelf getting ready to smack the snot out of Bebop and Rocksteady. To be honest with you, now that I have like the bag on his back, I'll probably always leave this bag on him. Like, I will probably never take it off. So, I probably won't, risk cracking that neck hole. Up next is the golf club. This is cool. It looks like they try to, copy the look of the original one by wrapping the putter and then kind of just having it wrapped all the way up here. And then you have like the grip at the top here. At least this one is a little bigger, although the putter is a little smaller. But, it looks good. It's nice. Casey Jones can hold this really well. And, I kind of take back what I was saying before about him tipping over or not tipping over with this bag on his back. Sometimes he does tip over a little bit. It's just you can easily fix the pose a little bit, unlike this original one where it's, very, very tricky. You just have to do some minor adjustments. There you go. But yeah, he can hold this thing and, wallop people as you see fit. Up next, you get 3 broken bats. And, what's really cool is that the original Casey Jones came with 2 bats, but they were the exact same sculpt, right? And, this is just a color variant, but, you get your Casey Jones and he would have the exact same things. Here you do get a bat that matches this one. It kind of has this cut that goes the same way. The wood grain doesn't match necessarily. Yeah, it's very different. And, the wrap around the handle is just a little different. But what's really cool is you get 2 other brand new bats. You get one where there's a chunk taken out of the top of it, which is nice. And then you get this other bat, which is, not broken at all. And this one actually looks like it has a bigger handle. And you have more of a rim or whatever down here at the bottom. Underneath this paint, it must be the same plastic that was used to make the weapons rack, because you can see a little tiny bit wore off there, and it's that turquoise color. So one of the, these look cool, and you got to pose Casey whacking people with bats. The only problem is the handle is a little small, and his grip is a little too big, so that you kind of have to get it in the right spot or kind of angle his hand in the right way, because look at that. It's going all over the place. Does it do that with the other hand? Yes. So that's, not the best. The hat that has the bigger handle, maybe that'll fit on his hand better. Yeah, like look how he grips that. Like that's perfect. Bam. But it still kind of moves around a little bit. Like it is, I don't know. It seemed like he held the golf club pretty good. And like I said, I don't know. When I think of Casey, I mostly just think of him using bats and also the hockey stick. But, I mean, he looks cool holding these bats. I just wish he could hold them a little better. So now we get to talk about the brand new weapons. And first up is this goalie stick. And this thing is really cool looking. It's pretty big. I think that this is really neat. It's a very nice accessory. And like, you can't help but look at this thing and just think about how brutal Casey Jones really is. Like, you whack somebody with this thing, you're going to kill them. Like, Casey Jones is a murdering vigilante. I mean, like, this is like taking a real life item that, like this is a mother's nightmare right here, right? This is the thing your mother warned you about. Like, don't wave your sticks around. You'll hurt somebody. And then you have Ninja Turtles being like, nah, this is a cool weapon. Pretend whatever you got, you can use that as a weapon. Athletic gear. You can use that to fight crime. And, you know, we all know why Super7 included this with this Casey Jones action figure, even though the original one did not have this goalie stick. They included it because of, you know, that awesome scene in the 1990 Ninja Turtle movie. I mean, when I think of Casey Jones, that's one of the first things that pops in my head. You know, he shows up to save the Ninja Turtles. He just looks so awesome. Just like holding that goalie stick in his hand. He looks so intimidating. Like he's gonna mess up those foot soldiers like nobody's business. You know, that is like the coolest on-screen Casey Jones I think we will ever see. And of course, Super7 had to include a hand so he can hold his goalie stick like this. That's awesome, you know. This, you know, despite being a Playmates Casey Jones, this guy has given me the, you know, the intimidation factor of Elias Cotes in that movie. Man, like I said, what an awesome scene. I love that whole battle scene. You know, these goalie sticks are a little heavy, so you would think that he'd be able to use two hands to hit people with it. But, you know, you're not going to be able to do that because you can't reach far enough to get a nice, like, two-handed swinging grip. I guess I would go same with the bats, too. You can't do that. So most of the times, if you're going to have him swing this at somebody, you're going to be using one hand. I mean, you can try, but it's not going to be easy. Plus, the stick starts to, you know, bend and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I guess most of his striking, you're going to have to do it single-handedly. The last thing included is 3 hockey pucks. You know, one doesn't have any tape on it at all. They're still sticky from the tape of the box. One has an X and just one has you know, pieces of tape around it. You know, you can get Casey Jones to hold these things, but like, what are you really going to do with them? I feel like that this was just kind of something Super7 threw in here just, you know, for fun. I have seen people like take photographs of like, you know, to make it appear as though these hockey pucks are like whacking people in the head and stuff like that. But like, how are you even going to do that on your shelf? You know, these things are good for photography trickery, and you know, that's about it. So Casey Jones doesn't have any swappable heads, but what he does have is a nice assortment of swappable hands. As I said before, you know, he has 2 sets of gripping hands. He's got one set with a vertical hinge and one set with a horizontal hinge. This is very good because, you know, if he's going to be swinging weapons around, you might want him to extend forward as he's swinging, or, you know, whatever else. It's very good for posing. And I just showed you how well these hands, you know, hold all of his weapons. The golf club and the goalie stick, the best. The broken bats, only one of them is kind of big enough to kind of stay in place in the gripping hands. So let's get rid of them. The next thing are these more open, relaxed hands, all right? And first I showed you have this one for, you know, the gloved hand. This works really good with the goalie stick. That way you can kind of, you know, just place it in his hand like that. And then the other one I think is really nice because it's sort of like a relaxed gripping hand, or almost like a gripping hand in motion. You know, he's not fully gripping, he's not fully relaxed, he's kind of moving in. And I think that this is a perfect hand for when you're like, you know, reaching behind his, you know, behind his back to grab a bat out of that bag. Like that looks really cool, you know, that looks very animated. And then last, he just has a set of fists, which is perfect, you know, perfect for when he doesn't have a weapon. You know, this is not painted the best though. Like the glove is kind of sloppily painted there. Like the brown should go in a little more and separate the finger a little more. It looks like the glove is ripped right here, and you can see the palm of his hand. See how nice that looks? Over here, not so much. You know, maybe yours is different than that. So yeah, that's it. Now that we're done with accessories, it's time to show this guy next to some of the other current Ninja Turtle action figures. You know, some of the new things that NECA, Super7, and Playmates have been putting out. First, let's take a look at this guy next to, I think these are all the unique bodies within this Ultimates line. I mean, Metalhead is sort of the same size and shape as Raphael. You know, I think it's real important to see how Casey scales next to Raph. I think Raph is the perfect height. You know, he's shorter, he's a little
bulkier and stuff like that. Him and Casey look like they're going to, knock some heads. Now here you can see him next to some of NECA's Fred Wolf Ninja Turtle action figures. What's really interesting here is the racking is pretty much almost the exact same height as Casey. He's just a little shorter, but the height of his knees, his pelvis, and his shoulders all kind of land at the same spot. His head is a little smaller, and his torso is a little beefier. And, looking at that next to this Casey Jones, I think kind of proves my point, or like my criticisms earlier in this video, that, if you would have shrunk his head down a little bit and you would have made his upper torso a little bulkier, he would have looked great, because the racking looks pretty good. He's a very well-proportioned action figure. I don't really think I had any negative problems with the racking, and his muscles look fine. And Casey, he just looks, a little too small. Here he is next to some of NECA's, movie series. Obviously he does not fit in with these guys at all, but, I just thought it'd be cool to show what he looks like, compared to these guys. These more realistic, highly detailed action figures. Here he is next to some of NECA's Mirage Ninja Turtles. Now his scale is just way off, he's way too big. Thankfully for all of us Mirage lovers, NECA has already announced and has already put up for pre-order on, websites like Big Bad Toy Store, a Mirage Casey Jones, so I cannot wait to pick that guy up. Here's Casey Jones next to some of Playmate's, reused Ninja Turtle bodies that they keep on pumping out, and also Bebop and a Triceraton. I've been meaning to do like a full review on the Triceraton and the Shredder, just because they were like new sculpts that we've never seen before. But it's just, I just can't ever get to them because of all the NECA and Super7 reviews I do. Trust me, there is a lot I would like to say about them, but I'll save you a video. They suck. Now this is something I love to do with these Ultimates action figures, I love to show how they've grown up, from back when they were Playmates action figures to now when they are Super7 Ultimates action figures. So far in Wave 2, we only have 3.5 figures. You have 3 more on the way. You have Ace Duck, Krang, and Leatherhead. And, I'm really looking forward to all 3 of those guys, Krang especially. I can't believe that Trag hasn't been announced yet. I mean, that's ridiculous. I think he would make a giant, cool-looking action figure. And just for fun, here's Wave 1 from 1988. And thankfully, we have every single one of these guys now. So that is awesome. Cross that wave right off your list. And now here is the 1990 wave, which is probably my favorite wave of all Ninja Turtles. And so far, we only have 3 of them in hand. Slash, the Triceraton, and Ray Fillet are on the way, eventually. But I'm just sitting here desperately, or just anxiously waiting for them to announce Scumbug in Wave 8. Like, he's always been a favorite of mine, and I feel like he should be out already. Come on. I also kind of think that, like, I'm kind of dreading how much Wingnut will cost whenever he's released. These Ultimates action figures get more expensive if they have more things going on, and I feel like Wingnut is going to be an $85 action figure. You come back here and you tell me if I was right or not. All right, so before we end this, I have to do the ultimate comparison battle. This is where I talk about this Casey Jones and compare him to pretty much every other Casey Jones action figure that I own. Now, there are a couple here that I don't have that I think are worth mentioning. I do not have the Casey Jones from the 2007 movie anymore. I, at some point, had gotten rid of all of my 2007 Ninja Turtle action figures. And I also don't have any Casey Jones action figures from the new, like, Michael Bay produced movies. Those, to me, those are the pretty much it. Like, I can't think of any other real Casey Jones action figures other than maybe Reaction, and then those, like, Loyal Subjects or those AXM Ninja Turtle action figures that have just been coming out recently, which I've mostly been skipping. I bought a Michelangelo, and it did not win me over, so back to this, right? So you have this brand new Ultimates Casey Jones, and, he's cool, but he's got some problems. And, the first thing we got to talk about is the original one from 1989. There's not really much to go over here because we went over everything pretty excessively, pretty crazily, in fact. You know, I have his golf bags completely loaded with all those items, and man, he's just not falling over. That's very surprising. But, you know, very cool action figure. Obviously, one of the most Mirage-inspired characters in all of the Playmates action figures. Even with, like I said earlier, he's got like those Kevin Eastman eyes. I don't know. This is as closest to a Mirage character that you were going to get way back when. Up next, you have NECA's Fred Wolf Casey Jones action figure. Now, this guy is cool. Just like the Ultimates Casey Jones, you can't remove his mask, you know. I guess in the original Casey Jones, too, you can't remove his mask. But he's pretty neat. He came with a golf bag filled with lots of really cool items. You know, items from the cartoon, like, you know, the regular hockey stick that he used to... He whacks a Chrome Dome in, what's that, Night of the Rogues. Then you have the goalie stick. I don't remember when he used that. You have this rebar, whatever this metal bat is. And then you just have a regular wooden bat. And then, of course, he has the sledgehammer, which I believe he uses the sledgehammer when he attacks, like, the giant knucklehead. But yeah, he's a very cool looking Casey Jones. I think, you know, some of the Fred Wolf series action figures also suffer from, like, you know, huge head-itis. I think this Casey Jones is one of them. It's just his head is just a little too big. You know, hopefully they release like a 2-pack with Casey Jones in April for everybody who missed out on these guys, because him and April, I think, are like some of the most expensive ones to purchase now, just because they were so rare back when they first came out. Up next is NECA's 1990 movie Casey Jones. Now, I do not have the Ultimate or the deluxe version of him with the removable mask, and I also don't have the Farm 2-pack, the April one. I have never seen either of those in any of my Walmarts. I've gone looking. Oh, I've looked, but I have never seen either one of them, which is a shame, because I would love to get the removable mask one. You know, this was a pretty neat looking action figure when it came out. The elbows are a little weird, but, you know, he just, again, has like a very nice assortment of weapons. Like, I love the big goalie stick. He had a very nice looking hockey stick that was wrapped in like electrical tape. He's got the goal or the golf club, so that if you ever got a tattoo action figure, you could whack him. Cricket, everybody knows Cricket. And then you got the cool baseball bats that are wrapped up in electrical tape. I don't know. This is, again, you know, this was a very cool looking Casey Jones action figure. NECA did a really good job getting the mask right and everything like that. I did a very extensive review on this guy and the Raphael with the trench coat back when I got them in the mail. Yep, that's all I got to say about this guy. Very, very cool. And if you watch that video, you know, you'll see how I think that this action figure was very close to Elias Koteas in the movie. I don't know how you pronounce his name. All right, up next, you have Casey Jones from the 2003 series. Now, this was one of those action figures, like whenever the 2003 cartoon came out, I was in college and I would run to every single Kmart, Walmart, and Toys R Us in my area looking for those Ninja Turtle toys. And I would buy them and I would leave them in box. You know, I never opened them. Eventually I sold a bunch of them and I only kept the 4 turtles. But Casey Jones was one of those ones when I was running around looking for them that for some reason I know I saw him. I just never bought him for some reason. I don't know why. You know, I bought April. Why wouldn't I buy Casey Jones? But he has these removable pads on his forearm and also on his shin down there. And, you know, he didn't really have much weapons. All I got was like a hockey stick, a golf club, and a baseball bat. And that is it. You know, the cool thing about this Casey Jones is you can actually remove his mask. Look at him. He looks like a little too handsome to be Casey Jones. Like, you could see why, you know, April likes this guy in that cartoon. And now I only have one more. Now, this Casey Jones is not my Casey Jones. It's my son's. But it's still a pretty neat, I guess. A very interesting take on Casey Jones. You know, this is from the 2012 cartoon. This Casey Jones apparently rides around on rollerblades. And he only had a bat and a hockey stick in his arsenal. He doesn't even have a bag or anything like that. He's got that giant, like, hockey pad glove. He did have a mask. He had like a goalie mask, but my son lost that probably within minutes of opening it up. So I think it is cool that they decided to paint his face underneath, which you do see in the cartoon. He does paint his face. So it's cool that he still looks like this, because you can still have him kind of act like a superhero. He's not like, regular faced Casey Jones. I don't know. The 2012 toys are not my favorite. I feel like that they can be sort of low quality, especially when you compare them to like the original Ninja Turtle toys from back in the day. You're like, now that is an action figure. And this action figure almost teeters on being like a Burger King Kids Club action figure. But he's still cool. I'm sure if you were a fan of that cartoon, you were probably happy to pick this guy up. And I got no problems with that cartoon. That cartoon is an excellent cartoon. And that's it. One last thing worth mentioning, NECA is releasing a Mirage Casey Jones. So it'll be very neat to see, how he compares to this Ultimates action figures as well as the other Casey Jones action figures I have. The only thing I'm a little iffy on is the choice of his colors, For some reason, NECA has been making the Mirage action figures like Renee. The colors that they appear in like the new IDW reprints, or when they actually release the color versions, they don't necessarily match the way that they were intended to look back when Mirage put out their like color versions. I kind of just think that NECA should stick with how these characters appeared in those first comics way back in the day. Those first graphic novels that were actually colored by people within Mirage. So I feel like, maybe I beat up on this guy a little too much in this video. Was I just like way too negative? Was I nitpicking way too much? Maybe, right? But this is just kind of me discussing my thoughts on this guy with you. I'm not necessarily trying to sway you one way or the other. Just kind of point out the problems I see and, kind of give it like a constructive critique. That's the best I can do. I have no money in the game whatsoever, so it doesn't matter if this thing sells or not. But, I don't know. There's just certain things about this guy. I felt like he could have been awesome if they would have just fixed some things. Like, they should have just fixed that stupid torso. If they would have fixed his torso, everything else would fall in line. I could get over the legs being bent outward at the bottom. So just remember, whenever you hear somebody say, oh, Gary's a shill because he likes an action figure that I don't like, you say, hey, did you check out that Casey Jones Ultimate action figure review? He totally gave one to that guy. All right, so talk to you later. Let me know what you think about this guy. Were you happy with him? Did you have problems? Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you later.